Just leave it on Jimmy.
Are you adjusting or just waiting on me?
Oh, he said it hit number 2 on the Logitech.
Yeah, we should just be able to face the camera and just hit it on that remote. He said 2. Okay. Perfect. It's auto tracking. I think it's gonna have to move a little bit. There's a wishful thinking to automate everything. Oh, it's like glued to the bottom.
I wouldn't worry about that. I think as long as the
We're good.
video shows and the volume's there.
Cool. All right.
All right,
Relax.
good to go? All right, I'll call this meeting to order. Everybody, please join. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendships among united cultures.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Richard Primrose,
Here.
Ms. Teresa Stevenson, here, Mr. Tom Sidwell,
Here.
Mr. Jimmy Sandoval,
Here.
and Mr. Philip Fox.
Here.
All right, next will be approval of the agenda with the one correction. Our next announcement will be, the next meeting will be Tuesday, June the 18th instead of the 23rd.
18.
Yes. So with that correction, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell?
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes.
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
And Mr. Primrose?
Yes.
And the motion carried.
All right, next on the agenda is summer hearings capital project.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I appreciate y'all being here today for this special meeting. This is one of the requirements to move forward with our project for the summer hearing capital outlay project. We are needing to get our official project approved by the board. With your board packet, I did include a brief little slideshow presentation to give you an idea of what I'll be submitting to the state for our project, and then Dr. Moss and I will have to go down to Hobbs in August to actually present this and kind of state our case on why we'd like to request these capital funds. With that being said, this year is going to be a kind of a carbon copy of almost what we asked for last year. One of the biggest needs on campus, and it falls in line with our ICIP that was approved last year. And we'll have to approve the updated ICIP by July, so you'll have a new ICIP coming before you for the meeting on June 18th of this year. We need to formally approve that by board and update that each year. It's one of our requirements to the state. So with that being stated, according to our last infrastructure capital improvement plan, the ICIP, it's the #1 ranked project. Last year we bundled up a project that involved infrastructure improvements throughout our campus, not just one particular building. So with that, you can see the two with the biggest needs. Those needs were in an effort to improve health and safety for our students, staff, and faculty. And this year, again, this is kind of an open discussion, so if y'all feel we need to amend any of these things based on the presentation I've submitted, please feel free to state so. But at this moment, I was looking at a request of $500,000, and that was an amount to fund the needed planning, design, and construction for these buildings, buildings A and E specifically. And we will be requesting a match waiver. Typically, two-year institutions are required to provide a 25% match on any of the funds that they're asking for. with that, that would be a match of 125,000. I've always done this previously, it's common practice, I'd love to request that match waiver, it's not guaranteed, but, we could try, that's, hopefully we could get that match waived. Now,
What if
also
they,
state,
what if they don't waive it?
if they don't waive it, nothing's set in stone, we don't have to approve the funding, we don't have to accept it and sign a contract, so once you go through this process, at the end, you still are presented an agreement to the college. And at that time, they will let us know, this is the amount you requested, this is the amount of the match, and if it's something that isn't advantageous for the colleges, we can't afford it, then at that time, we'd have to decide, y'all as the board would decide, well, maybe we can't accept these funds. And it's rare, it's happened before, and unfortunately, in my past experience, I've had to deny some funds due to that, the matching costs or costs associated with that. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but I just want to be transparent and let you know that that is an opportunity where it could come back when they did deny the match. I also wanted to be stated with this project that it can be phased. This will be an off year, so this should be a severance tax bond funded year or general fund from the state for the capital outlay, whereas we just went through the GEO bond process. Unfortunately, we were not eligible for the GEO bond process that will go to election this year due to our audit being behind. But we're working on that. Things are moving forward, so we hope to be eligible by the time these funds are available by the next legislative session in January of 2025. So just some background, Building A, it is home to our Educational Services Center, our library, our health and wellness facility, student services, our business office, the bookstore and mercantile will eventually end up there, and home to our nursing program. Some of the biggest needs that we need is a roof replacement over the library. That was not included as part of our insurance claim. That section of the roof, we were aware of, there's been documentation previously that it was a bit older and to the point where it needed to be replaced anyhow. And with my packet, I also included some of the quotes that we received previously for some of the work that I'll be explaining today, as well as an attempt to go after capital funds before, prior to my time here at the college. So it does show a great need and effort. I've always been a huge believer in replacing or repairing infrastructure. That's kind of your skeleton. That's what keeps things going here on campus. If the exterior is damaged, then you'll have damage to the interior, as we've seen with Building E, where we had mold that had to be remediated at that location because the exterior failed. So to me, we have to protect that outer shell and make sure that our structure, the skeleton of the college is strong and able to go. We also need to replace the big windows on the east side and flooring in the library. Since I've been here, I've noticed that there's been a bit of condensation and leakage coming from those library windows. The flooring's old and outdated in the library and has been damaged in the past as well. So that's part of the scope of the project. Also wanted to address drainage issues by correcting the native grade that sloped towards the library. So if you're in the library looking towards the east out the windows, you could see that the ground, the elevation actually is sloped towards the building, which is contributing to, it could contribute to issues with the foundation, but also, allowing water to come in through those windows. So that's a little bit more than larger project than we would do typically in-house. Would involve probably potentially relocating some sprinklers, digging out some of that dirt and coming up with a permanent solution to slope the drainage towards the parking lot. We also have to work on the exterior insulation finishing system. As you can see, the stucco in the courtyard is a bit damaged. That's where we've had issues with the restrooms by the nursing program. It's allowed water to get into the facility where we had mold before, and that's been remediated. I've been told by contractors before we would even consider doing those restrooms that it's probably best to repair that outside. If not, if we have a brand new restroom and put sheetrock up, we have the potential of allowing moisture to get back and then creating further damage. A lot of these issues were noted in our most recent loss control and safety audit by Palms Insurance last year, so that also helps. I will provide that documentation with our presentation, update it to the portal to show that not only do we see a concern with this, but it's also been stated by our insurance that we need to address these concerns. In Building E, a lot of Building E's damage that was received through the storm event a year ago, almost a year to the date now, will be covered through insurance, a lot of different things, but however, some of the stucco work will not. There are some pre-existing conditions there as well. So there's a need for some extensive stucco work on the exterior wall on the west side of the wind energy building, as well as gutter work. It seems that maybe water is running down through that gutter, washing out at the stucco and creating further damage, which could lead to some serious damage on the exterior of that wall. We also need to redesign or replace the west side fans to avoid moisture from entering the buildings. We were notified about that situation by our insurance and the insurance adjusters. Part of the submittal criteria is giving an update on our current projects. So I've included the next current slide about how we're relocating our student services center to the southwest corner of the building. And that project is nearly complete. I expect that, I know it'll be complete by June because we have to close that out before the end of the fiscal year. And there's minimal things to be covered at this point. We have installed all the furniture and the graphics have been installed. We talked about that last time. Most of the punch list is complete. And at this point, it's just very small, minimal punch list items that will be completed in June. And we have issued payment for the last 2 pay applications that should have been going out in the mail today or yesterday. So that is about wrapped up. And the additional supporting documentation that I showed in this presentation is the quotes again for some of that exterior work. And you can see it runs up near 500,000. I don't like to paint ourselves in the corner. There's other things that sometimes fit within that scope that we may need to update that we didn't catch right at this moment. So I like to have some of those items a little bit open-ended. That way we have the capability of fixing other issues if they arise between now and the time of the legislative session. I've also included a copy of the ICIP for FY 2025 through FY 29. I wanted to ask the board and Dr. Moss, we haven't had much time to talk about this. It's been a bit busy. We have Fire Marshal's office on campus today. That's going very well. We're proud to see that moving forward. I'd like to thank facilities maintenance for all their hard work and what they're doing to make sure we're doing what we need to, as well as the other departments. Art as well, making sure that they're tidying up their spaces and we're doing everything to meet compliance. Another option that we had discussed last year around this time to submit this project was the Dinosaur Museum roof and exterior repair. I was notified, it was a little bit new to me. When Dr. Moss and I went to ENMU last year to present this similar project, we had the Dinosaur Museum included in that. However, it was brought to our attention at the time that they based this funding for the summer hearing project based on ING on your instructional use of the facility. And I know that building is only partially used for instructional space, and the others, say maybe the gift shop. So that area, based on the percentage, you wouldn't be eligible for the full amount. So we would have some kind of match required for sure on that, because not the whole building is utilized for instructional purposes. So again, this is fluid. This is a moving application. It's due on Monday, but I have to have the board's approval for the project and the scope overall and to sign off on it. With that being stated, I don't know if it's worth maybe looking at any repairs over the Dinosaur Museum area that's used for instructional use and including that with this application process. If we want to focus on buildings A and E, but I'd love to hear y'all's feedback and comments. And again, it's nothing set in stone at this point, but come January 3rd on Monday, or excuse me, June 3rd, it will be set in stone, so we have to be committed to that now.
I had a couple of questions. Number one, on our ICIP for 2025 and for the infrastructure, our ICIP says we could use $900,000.
Correct.
And so we're asking for 500 instead of the 900. And then the estimates that we're showing are a year and 2 years old, so we know material and labor is going to be going up. So my my question is, why don't we go ahead and just ask for the 900,000 to match our ICIP and allow for the possibility of everything going up?
No, that's a good question. I'm open to that. I was being fairly conservative. So some of the items, and I should have printed out the actual scope for that specific number one ranked project. I think there's a little bit more scope of detail than just the name of critical infrastructure project. Some of those are going to end up being covered by insurance that were part of that original scope. And then the other reason for me to dial it back a little bit was because of that match. I was trying to think realistically, what could we afford if we had to do the match? Again, worst case scenario, we could always turn it down if we do ask for the 990,000. I'm open to that, and I know we kind of set the mark high last year. We didn't have exact quotes for all of the work to be completed. Now we have a little bit more of an idea on those items to be completed and a dollar amount associated. But as you stated, they are old. Prices continue to go up. So again, that's why we had this meeting. I'm open to the input, and we could definitely increase it.
We'll be able to get, and we will need to get current quotes closer to the time of our presentation, correct?
Yes, correct.
For HED and then to look at. Okay.
Absolutely.
Another question that just popped into my head, if we submit this and let's say we submit it for 500 to 900,000, do we have to do the whole project, or if we start and I think whatever happens, we're going to make it work. But if we, spend 300,000 on the project, but then we don't have any more money to do the rest of the match, would you be able to stop there, or do you have to do the complete project? I don't know the answer to that.
It's a good question. So typically the full capital outlay process, from what it seems like it's coming to me with HED, is you present this summer hearing project. HED ranks these, their panel, their board will rank all the projects from all the different higher educational institutions. And when they do that, they make a recommendation to the state. It gets bundled up on HED's side of it, so it's separate from our typical ask if we went to our local legislators to request our own internal funds for the college. So it's treated a little bit differently, but if it makes it through and it's vetted and it's approved at the legislative session as part of that package for HED, we then would enter into an agreement with the state, and it'd be a typical capital appropriation, and you'd have 4 years to expend those funds. And there's some language on the handout that the board has to sign off that we're committing to spending, I think, 5% within the first 6 months or something along those lines. It's in the handout. I can pull it up.
So when we're talking about the match, we would actually have, you're saying 4 years to spend that and come up with a match? Or did I hear that wrong?
I'm not certain. I need to do, I could find out more.
Because I don't view that as a problem, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
If we're not there in 4 years, then we've got bigger problems.
Yes.
If it's stretched out amongst the 4 years, and yeah, absolutely, I think that's no issue. I don't know if they didn't try to make us pay that match up front, or that's interesting because
I should have asked you these questions before, but I didn't think.
I don't remember having to match in my previous experience, having to match
Okay.
the funds. Typically, capital outlay, it was all 100% yours, no match included. So this is a little bit different process to me, but I could probably reach out to Gerald and get that answer. And it says a minimum of 5% of the appropriation incurred within the first 6 months from the date of the bonds, that the date of the bonds are issued. So with this, it's not just automatically receiving the money either. It has to go through HED's summer hearing process. We have to get vetted through them. Then it goes through the legislature, and then once the legislature has approved it, then they have to make sure that the bonds are sold, and then the money will be released.
So if we ask for the 900,000 and they come back and say, well, you're gonna have 750, would we not be better off than just asking for the 500,000 to start with? Kinda going back to Richard's question there.
No, I completely agree with that. I do, and that's why I stated that this project can be phased as well, because even if they say, well, money's tight and we can't even do the 500 or the 900, if we'll offer you this amount, is this feasible? Absolutely, any kind of funds we could get to further improve our infrastructure would be amazing. And I know they asked that question at the hearings last year was, can this project be phased? And since we're not going in for one specific project or some of the other institutions have, say like we had the student service center, that was specific to the student service center in that location of building A. We have needs, important needs that will lead to further damage if we don't address them. And that's why I feel it's not specific to one project, it's multiple projects.
And I would love to ask for 2 or 3 million to build a student residence hall. And I think it's a need and something that's down the road. But as you all have talked to the legislators and stuff, there are a lot of people hesitant to give us substantial amounts of money until they see not only back on track, but that for a period of time. But I think this project is just keeping up what we already have. And it seemed like we got good feedback from HED that this is a good project. They just didn't allow us to go through without our audits being caught up.
And it's, going back to the student housing, that's something we could address in this year's version of the ICIP for our 5-year plan, is discussing maybe we start with the lower amount for planning and design, where we could hire an engineer to actually design some student housing, and then within that time, everything should be caught up, audits caught up, back in a better place, and then we could go back to them and ask for construction funds to actually build the student housing at that point.
Well, I know if we did the plan and design, that's great, but once we start construction, that money, that the 500,000 is gonna be way short.
I agree.
Back in the day, when Dr. Bear was here, the board would go to Santa Fe and talk to different people in Santa Fe to fund whatever we needed. But nowadays, board members just sit and would just listen.
It's a different process from what I'm used to, and I don't know if HED's always been that way, but like I said, they have their own committee, at least for the summer hearing project, and it seems like that's your big ask for the year, is do this. But I'd also recommend outside of this, once everything's caught up with the audits, is reaching out to our local legislators and asking for some assistance for other projects as well on campus. That fit within our ICIP, we have to make sure it's on the ICIP as well.
And I think too, any words you all individually as board members can give to, like Senator Woods or Representative Chatfield or Senator Campos, would be beneficial. They don't have direct input to these projects, but words of encouragement I don't think would hurt.
Sure enough, okay.
Any other questions or comments or anything else that you feel should be included on this? And this was just based on an assessment, just based on what we submitted last year, based on current needs, and speaking to facilities maintenance as well.
I was wondering, Mark, this date on the submittal certificate, do we need to update that? Cause this is
So-
2023.
So we do, so it asks, when's the last time, based on what we're submitting right now, was it approved through ICIP, and when was the last time? So the last time we approved our ICIP was that date.
Last year,
Yes,
okay.
sir. So that's something we have to do annually, that's due July 1st at the fiscal year. And the calendar of events, the chart that has been put out in the agendas before, I know Ms. Margaret's shared with me, typically we approve the ICIP at the June meeting, and we talked about it. This project was typically approved, was it in the June or July meeting? But everything's kind of been bumped back a month, so that's why it's changed from the calendar the way it used to be. But yes, sir, that's correct. That is the correct date from June
Okay.
20th of 2023. That was probably last year's meeting when we were talking about the summer project as well as ICIP. But we will update the ICIP in the June 18th.
If you go get it all you can, if we ain't that work done anyway. It's better fix it out than later.
I'm like you, I'm not used to the process of HED, but capital outlay, we would ask what the amount that's on our ICIP, and then they would tell us exactly how how much they could
Yeah.
afford, and then we would whittle our project down to match it, but I don't know if HED's that way or not.
I think that'd be worth trying anyway, and, you know. I
The
think
worst
that's
thing
the right way
happening
to
is
go.
tell us no.
Yeah, and we've heard that
So,
plenty of times.
so we're already back to where probably was starting
We're
at.
used to that already.
All right, so do I have a motion to that effect, or,
I would make the motion that we do what we need to on this ICT and that for the 900,000.
990?
Yeah, whatever that figure is there.
Have a motion,
Second.
have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Box,
Yes,
Mr. Primrose,
Yes.
and Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
and the motion carried.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you,
thank
appreciate
you.
your presentation.
Good luck.
Try to hard. All right, and next on the agenda is, announcement.